to get back to you sometime after the webinar's run. And finally, we are going to be recording this session, and when it's finished after a few days, I'll send out a recording link to those of you who registered for it so that you can watch it later or show it to other people or whatever you like. All right, so to start with, we're going to look at the Cadimage Doors and Windows tool. Before we do that, let me just briefly talk about why you would want to use the Cadimage Doors and Window tool. As you probably know, if you're using ARCHICAD already and you're not using our tools, ARCHICAD comes with a whole pile of doors and windows built into it. So why bother using our one? Well, one of the main reasons is that a lot of the doors and windows that are built into ARCHICAD make certain design decisions for you. So for instance, let's say you want to start drawing a door. You select door 20 or door 19 if you're a 19. And as you can see, you've got plenty of options to do what you want to do in here. But one of the main problems here is that having decided that 20 is what you want to go for, and you make some changes here, if you later decide that you want to add a side light to that door, you're pretty much just out of luck. The way that you do that is by changing to door with side light 20. And then if you want to change back, or if you want to change to having two side lights, you have to choose a different object. Similar with Windows as well. If we look into there, there's plenty of windows in the default library, but if you want to change how many panes are in your window or anything like that, you just have to choose a different object. So what we choose to do with the Cadimage Doors and Cadimage Windows objects is just to remove having to choose what window or door you want to use, and also to remove the limitation of having to change to a different object if this one doesn't suit what you want. So the Cadimage library for Cadimage Windows, there's just the one window. Same with Cadimage Doors in our library. If you want to choose a door, your options are the Cadimage door or the Cadimage garage door. Should be pretty easy to choose between those two for whatever you want. So let's start off by looking at the window tool. So it defaults to show us the glazing panel, and this is one of the areas where you'll spend probably the most time using the window tool, or at least where you'll start out using the window tool. You can see in my preview here it's just a fairly standard single pane window, but we can use this interface down here to make changes. So if I press the plus button here, I can duplicate the pane that I have selected, so we have two of them now. And if I hit plus again, it will duplicate the one that was selected to give me three. I can click in here to select panels and remove them again, and I can also do other things with the layout of my panels, such as to insert a top row or a panel above. Sorry, with something selected. Can insert a panel above, so you can see that that makes its change there. I'm going to insert a top row in these windows so you can see it running along the top there. And we've got controls for the way that all of these look in this interface here. So if I select the panel that I want to work with, I can choose what kind of pane it has. I can set it up to form a grid if I want to. There's this surface setting for it there, and then there's some other settings to do with how it opens and that sort of thing. Then we've also got some settings down the bottom here to set the panel width and the opening angle if it was an opening window. The panel width being set to 0 just means that it will use up a even amount of space to everything else in there that has a panel width of 0. As soon as you enter a value into here, it changes to be that exact width, and the panel that is set to 0 just uses up whatever is left to it. And then to change the overall dimensions of the window, you use the same settings as you use for every ARCHICAD object, which is these ones here. So let's set that there. You can see changes right away, and then we can modify those inside the panel, inside the window, using this width option here. So we'll look at the various panel options in a second, but before we do, let's just jump over to the shape panel, which is first in the list here, and that lets me set the shape of my window. So this is probably after, or possibly even before, this may be your first design decision with your window, apart from the size, is what kind of shape you want it to be. So obviously it's defaulted to a fairly standard rectangular shape here, but we've got a variety of options that we could choose. For the shape of the window, we could give it rounded corners, we could make it a nice arch, gable, or we can put an angle on the top. Like this. So I'm going to choose to have it on an angle, and as you can see, I've got various settings for the way I want that angle to work. So C, which is the value that I changed here, 400 is the distance from the top point to where I want the bottom to be, and it's automatically calculated the angle to be 9.46 degrees. You could enter the angle there instead of the distance for C, if you know what the angle is rather than the drop. The drop distance is probably a phrase for that, I'm not sure. Then we've got option B, which lets us add a step into it. So I'm going to add a step of 600. See, it adds that there. And then dimension A is a step on the other end, so I'm going to add a similar step at the top. So you can see my window now changes to that shape. If I show the straight on view there, you can probably see it a bit more easily. You can also change the sill shape as well, which is probably a bit less common, but we have pretty much all the same options. So you could have a arched sill, you could have a rounded corners sill, you can have an angle on your sill, similar to I have on the top. You can do steps as well. But for this example, I'm just going to leave it as flat. Make it a little bit higher. Oops. It's a bit much. And now if I go back over to my glazing tab, where we were before, you can see the changes are shown in my editable box here. So I'm going to expand this out to make it into 4 panels. And now we're going to modify some of these panels. So I'll leave the top panel as just a fixed pane there. But I'm going to change some of these in here. So let's start on this side. And what we'll do here is we'll split it horizontally by inserting a panel above. So that breaks it in 2, as you can see there. And at the top I'm going to have a awning window. You can see there. And then at the bottom I'm going to have a door, and we'll look at the settings for this door in a minute. But for now you can put doors into your windows, so there we go. Next panel I'm going to split in half as well. Whoops, wrong button. So I'll go insert a panel above there again. Actually no, I'll insert it below for this one. And I'll make the bottom panel louvers, and the top one can be a double hung. Alright, and I'll make the split ratio a little bit bigger. Okay. Next one across, I'll just make a slider. And another slider there. Great. So that's roughly how I want it to look. I can change the values of the heights of these above and below panels here by just going into excuse me. Oh, goodness. Into here. Excuse me, losing my voice a little bit there. So you can see B is currently set to 500. I think I'll stick with 500 for that one, but C I think is a little bit small, so I'm going to make that 500 as well. Oops, not 5,000. And you can see it's evened out a bit now. Now with these different panels that I've got in there now, you can see I've got a few more settings available, so I can set the opening margin there. With the louvers, I can set the width of the louvers. And with the door, I'll be able to set what type of door I want to have in there as well, so we'll look at that in a second. I can also set my materials there, which I'm going to make the louvers let's use some wood louvers. Okay, now as you can see there's a lot of different interface pages that we could go to here. We're not going to visit quite all of them, but we'll look through most of them. Glazing bars allows us to set glazing bars in the panels that we have. We've got the louvers selected at the moment and it doesn't want to let me do glazing bars on those, which is fair enough. But we could put them in here. Just come in and choose what kind of grid you want to use. And it'll apply them there. You can see that, all right. But the next one is the door type. So at the moment it's set to a single swing, but we could choose any of these selection of doors. I'm going to stick with a single swing for now. And then we can set how we want the leaf to look. So at the moment it's just using a single chunk of wood as the leaf style, but we could change it to various other types of door leaf. I'm going to choose 2D, I think. So you can see it's got a piece of glass in the top, and it's actually got two panels in the bottom, but the panels are both using the same surface as the door itself, so you can't actually see from here that they're there, but if I go to 2D you can see that they are. And I can modify what type of panels they are here as well, so I'm going to make them beveled panels, which should make them a bit more visible in 3D now. And I can set glazing bars on the door leaves as well, which I'm going to leave for now. Next we've got some hardware settings. If you had any door panels in your window, you can set the way that you want the handles and things to look at those. So I'll set the handle just to be, let's just make it turn knob on exterior, yes, the exterior. And the same on the interior. Kick plates, I'm going to leave the kick plates off for this one. And then we've got some settings to do with the frame. So this is a sort of the business end of the in-depth detail on your windows. You can set the width and depth of the inner and outer frames, set the way that you want the sill profiles to look. At the moment they're just matching, so that's fine. And we've also got surface settings to the right hand side of most of these panels, so you can set the way you want each piece to look. But as you can see, I'm not going to step through all of these settings, but as you can see, you can have a lot of control over all of these settings here. So basically you can make your windows and doors look pretty much any way that you want them to using all of these controls here. Got some shim space settings there as well if you want one of those. Glass settings let you choose whether you want to use single glazed or add extra glazing to them, and once you do that, you can change the settings of those. And again, we've got surface and pen settings over here. Stick with single for these. Then we've got some settings for exterior trims if you want those, so you can put head mouldings, jam mouldings, general exterior trims and sills here. Let's put a sill on this one while we're here. And there's further detail for each of those settings by either clicking on the little ellipsis button here or by just clicking on it in the menu. So if we go to sill, you can see much more detailed settings for that sill here. Then we've got some interior trim settings as well, so you can switch those on and modify them there. And then attribute settings, where essentially these are the attribute settings that you saw on each page. This just gives you one central point to modify all of the attributes. And the last part here is some settings to do with the schedule. The Cadimage Tools and Windows tool has its own schedule tool, and these settings here are to do with the schedule there, but we're not going to look at that today. Alright, so now that we've drawn up our window, let's place it. So you place it the same way that you would any window or door. Whoops. Which I forgot to do. Click. And then click again. Obviously this one's come in too high because it's defaulting to be a sort of a window height. But you can see that this is something that to draw up using standard windows or doors in ARCHICAD, it would have required at least 2 or 3 different windows or doors being stuck next to each other and hoping that they render correctly, and then that'll schedule differently individually and that sort of thing. So one of the great advantages of using the Doors and Windows tool is simply that it puts them all in one place, and we can jump back in and change any of the settings anytime. We don't have to change to a different object if we want to grossly modify the shape of this window or door. And we can add or remove panels as we go along at any stage in the project. So that's the window tool. I'll look briefly at the door tool while we're here as well. Once you've familiarized yourself a little with the window tool, the door tool will become very obvious to use, as a lot of the settings are very similar. So the shape settings are essentially identical, only you can't change the sill to be anything except flat. Sorry, the base to be anything except flat. Got some settings for the door type, which again are the same settings that we saw for the door type in our window. And then we've got settings for glazing panels at various places around our door, side lights and overlights. We can modify the door leaf, that's exactly the same as what we saw in the window. Hardware, very similar frame settings again. Glass settings exactly the same, and then exterior and interior trims, attributes all in one spot, and schedule settings as well. So once you know the window tool, you pretty much know the door tool and vice versa. The garage door tool is very similar as well, only it has a few less settings and lets you set the way that you want the door to open, whether it's sectional or a roller and that sort of thing. Alright, so that's the windows and doors. Next we're going to move on to the covering tool. So the covering tool, the purpose of the covering tool is to allow you to easily add extra detail to your model, and also to actually model things that often you would instead just use a surface or something and then draw 2D details with or something like that. So the first thing I'm going to show you on is just this slab out here, and what we want to do is we want to add some decking to this. So normally what you might do is you might jump into the settings for that slab, and on the top surface set some sort of decking material, sorry, decking surface. What have we got that looks good? Wood deck, let's go with that one, sounds right. So you can see it's made a fairly okay representation of a deck there. You can see the wood texture and it's running across like that. But once we cut a section through that, it's not going to show that there is any decking on that, and also the texture doesn't look super amazing in 3D either. So if we wanted to instead have something that would represent well and would also have actual data to show in section and elevation views and also in 3D, the next option that you could try would be to use a bunch of little slabs or possibly beams to actually model the decking across here, but again that's going to be quite time consuming, and it also means that as soon as we change our deck's shape we're going to have to offset a bunch of whatever elements we use to model that decking. So this is where the slab accessory, or sorry, the slab covering comes in. So the way that we apply one of those is we just select our slab, click on the Cadimage menu and go Coverings, Slab Coverings. And we've got two slab covering objects available. Cadimage Precast Slab is for doing precast elements on your slab. There's a couple of different profile shapes that you can use that you can see changing here in my 3D preview. And there's settings similar to what we have in all of our tools to let you modify the attributes and surfaces of those. But we're not wanting a precast slab on this one, we're wanting some decking. So if we choose the decking object instead, you can see we've got a whole lot of settings for exactly how we want our decking pieces to look. So we've got a reeded profile or a flat that we could use. I'm going to go with reeded for this one because it looks cooler. You can choose what kind of grooves you want, and then there's all of these dimension settings for the spacing of the grooves on your decking elements, and also settings up here for the width and spacing of the actual plank elements themselves. Similar settings to before for the attributes and the surfaces. Once we've got this set up how we want, click OK, and immediately we have some nice 3D decking. So you can see if you zoom in here now, our decking is actually completely modelled in 3D with all of the little wibbly wobblies and everything. So if we cut a section through that, it's going to look how it does actually look. And in our 3D views, it'll obviously look good as well. So we have the advantage that it looks right, which we could have got with the texture, and that it is modelled right, which we could have got by modelling the elements themselves. So it gives you the best of both worlds there, really. But it also gives us the added advantage now that if we were to change the shape of this slab, add some points there, as you can see, as I change the shape of this slab, the decking automatically moves around to fit the new shape. So you can see that's automatically fit to my decking out to my slab shape as I've changed it. So there's no need to go back in and remodel up a lot of different bits if that's the way that you did it, and it'll still represent exactly as it should be in 3D and 2D section views. So that's the decking accessory. It's a nice simple one, but the next covering tool is more complex, shall we say. It allows you for a lot more control, and so the next tool is the roof coverings. So you can see I've got my roofs here, and again, normally what you may do with one of these roofs is that you'd select them, you'd select the roof, and then to make it show, say, tiles, you would come in here and you'd choose one of these roof tile things, and that would give you a kind of nice looking tile surface on top of that roof, which is kind of fine for the purposes of this 3D view, but it's not going to be great on intersections, and again, same as with the decking, as soon as you cut a section through that, you're not going to see any extra data. It's just going to look like a normal roof. So this is where the coverings tool comes in again. So what I'll do is I'll just select all of these roofs, and I'll go to the CAD image menu, coverings, roof coverings. So all of the coverings are applied the same way, which is that you select the element that you want to cover, and then you go to the menu command that's appropriate from the Cadimage coverings menu. So we've got Cadimage roof coverings selected here. Starting from the very top of the settings here, this gives you a high level setting for the type of roof that you want, and it will change the edge types as appropriate to that. So you can see monopitch, hip gable, they have different default settings here. You can always just choose custom and set your own there, or you can modify each edge after we've made them. So we're going to go with hip gable for now. Choose the type of cladding that you want. So we've got tiles going at the moment, but if I set this to custom, you can see there's Spanish tiles, shingle, ribbed, corrugate, and flat options as well. You can also use none if you just want some of the accessories that the covering tool has, but not the actual covering itself. And then once you choose what type you want here, you can set the dimensions of the tiles that you want to apply and the way that you want them to look as well. I'll change back to the tile style. There's also some settings for the framing as well, because those get modeled. You can see them in my 3D view there. So I've got show framing set to on at the moment. There's a couple of presets there, but we're just going with custom. So you can use timber or steel framing, and then you can set the dimensions and set out of those framing elements there. Then we've got options for the edge boards here. So there's different edge board settings for the fascia barge and ridges. Got some settings for the soffits here. I'm just going to go over these without actually changing too much of them, so that you can see what the default looks like. But you can modify pretty much every aspect of each of these little accessory parts. Then we've got flashings here, and we can set various parts of all of the flashing options there. Some settings for the gutter, so that it automatically puts gutters around our edges, and there's a bunch of different gutter profile types there, and once you choose what type you want to go with, you can set all of the settings for them there. We've also got down pipes that will be attached to the gutters, and you can manipulate those in 3D where you want them to be if the defaults aren't right. Again, we've got a bunch of settings for the way that you want the downpipe to look, and then we've got a big pile of attributes here as well. So similar to as in the windows and doors, there's one page that shows you all of the attributes that you can set, and then there's further settings for the cut surfaces for all of these as well. And now if we just click OK, you see the coverings are applied and we've got a lot more detail now. So still looks like tiles, but we've got proper ridges and intersections along them here. And all of those are actual 3D elements. So if we were to cut a section through, you would see that they're actually 3D tiles. You can see that in 3D here as well. So as soon as you cut sections in there, you've got your line work done for your section views or details or whatever. And all of the accessories that I wanted are applied as well, so you can see the various parts of it there. And we don't have to do much work to tidy that up either. It's applied it pretty much exactly how I want it to, but with something a little bit more interesting like these roof elements here. I select those three and apply a covering to them. You can see it's applied the coverings pretty much bang on, but they are a little bit funny on this edge here. So the covering has tried to do its best there, but it doesn't realize that this edge shouldn't be the way that it is. So what we're going to need to do is we're just going to need to chop this roof, sorry, not to chop it, but to add an extra node here so that we can make the edging of this part of the covering different to here, because we're going to want to put an apron on there. So let's just pop into 2D. Find our roof. And I'm just going to split that there so that we get another node at the point that we want. And then on the other side as well. Alright, so that will have made no change visually in 3D yet because we haven't actually done anything, we've just split them up. So now I select the covering that I want to modify, click on the Cadimage menu again and go to Coverings, Edit Roof Edges. And this will bring up a little preview of my roof shape here, so you can see it's shown here. And I've got this gable barge here which I want to modify. So you can see it doesn't quite go to the end. If I zoom in a little, you'll be able to see the second part there. So I'm going to select this part of the edge, barge fascia, that's what we want. And this one here, barge fascia, which is not what we want, so I'm going to change that to an apron. Click OK. And now you can see it's put an apron onto that edge and left this how we wanted it. And I can do the same thing to the other side. Select that edge I want to change. You can see it in red. Put an apron on that one and click OK. And that's corrected both sides of it for me. You can also edit multiple selections of roof edges if you've got a bunch that you want to do all at once. And it'll show you all of them like that, which can make it a bit easier just to see the context, or lets you do a whole bunch of them at one time. But that looks nice and tidy now. The next part of the covering that we want to look at is the wall coverings, which work in a very similar way to the others. Excuse me. In that we select the walls, letting me do that. I'll just select them. And then we just go Cadimage Coverings, and we will choose wall coverings. Can't apply wall coverings in 3D though, unfortunately, because you need to be able to see where they go to. Excuse me while I go and select all of these. Let's go with just those ones for now. Alright, Cadimage Coverings, wall coverings. Okay, and the settings in here are very similar to what they were in the roof covering. Obviously they don't do the same things, but it's the same kinds of things. But starting at configuration, you can see we can split up the way that we want our covering to look. So single cladding will just apply one cladding to everything, but you can split up your coverings to do various things depending on what's in your walls. So you can get it to split around openings and that sort of thing. I'm just going to choose to split at the sill height, so that we've got two pieces of covering here, and we can set the sill height that we want to use here. I'm just going to use 950 because that looks fine. You can also choose the way that you want it to follow your wall. So if you've got a particularly weirdly shaped wall, or if you want to just change the way that it follows it, you can modify that here by either making it just go flat, or only follow it to a certain height, or you can just set it to custom and modify it in 3D, which gets rather tricky, as you can probably imagine. So I'm going to just go with following the top shape of the wall, and I'm going to not choose an offset, so I'm just going to have it going straight to the top. And the base, we've got a bit of a pullback from the bottom of the wall at negative 150 there, but it's similar settings for that one there. And then we can jump through the settings for our coverings here. So at the moment the main covering is set to custom, and so is the below sill covering. We've got a couple of sort of presets here, but if I click on the ellipsis button here, it will take me straight to the main covering section, and that lets me set what we want that to look like. So let's make this one weatherboards, so you can see those in 3D there. Probably look alright. On there. Alright, so we've got our weatherboards, and as you can see they've come in vertical because I must have used a rotation on these last time, so I'm going to set that orientation to 0 so that they're horizontal instead. And then covering, before we go to that, there's various settings for the internal, external corners, and the squarings and joints between claddings as well. So if I wanted to the external corners to have a sort of rectangular blocking on the edge, on the corner or something like that, you can do that here. Then we've got our covering below sill height option, which has defaulted to bricks and blocks, which is fine. And I'll make that just a bit of a darker colour so that you can see the difference there. There's also the option in this one to offset it from a certain point, because you probably want your block work to be oriented with a certain point on the wall, so you can choose what that is there. Bottom left is what I'm going with. And this one has the same settings for the internal and external corners, so let's go with a however you say that word on the external corners. Then we've got settings for horizontal trims as well, so you can put trims at the various parts of your covering. So you can see I went with a wall top and put a sill on there, so you can see that there. But you can put those on the head height, sill height, and the base as well. And you can also apply them to the openings too. So you can, if you're not using our doors or windows tools, or if you are and you just want to have the opening trims done using the covering rather than the window, then you can do that here. So there's head trims, jambs, sill, and edge offsets. So you can set up various profiles to go around those. I don't have any openings in this wall, so you can't see them, but it'll trace around the outside of any openings that are in your walls. And the last settings that we've got in here are the same as we've had everywhere else, which is the big panel with all of the attributes in it, and then for the coverings we have the cut surface settings for each of the elements of the covering there. So now we just click OK, and you'll get this sort of little looking eye cursor, and it just wants us to choose what side of the wall we want to go on, if we want to go on the inside or the outside. So I'm going to go with the outside for these ones. And now that we jump back to 3D, you can see it's applied those coverings to all of the walls that I had selected, which unfortunately I forgot that one. But you can see, so we've got our brick and blocks on the bottom, weatherboards up top. It's looking a little bit busy, but it's done what I asked it to. And it's looking really good. We've got a whatever the word is for that thing, the external corner setting there is applied to the bottom but not the top, which looks great. And again, because these are attached to the underlying elements, if I was to modify any of these wall shapes, or if I was to pop in a new opening to any of those, it will, let me just do it while I'm saying that, it'll let me do that. Except that I can't do it in 3D because it's not getting the wall. So you can see it's, now that I placed that window there, it's at the wrong height, but it's looking pretty good, and it's cut a hole through the covering exactly the way it should do. So again, they look complex because there's a lot of settings to them, but once you've got them placed, it just makes everything nice and easy. You don't have to worry about not wanting to change anything about your walls now that they're set up right, because the coverings will just flow through any of the changes that you make, and you don't have to mess around. Obviously there's a lot more to them still, so if you want to look at those in a trial, or if you've got any questions, just remember you can send those through to us. But the next thing that we'll look at is the cabinets. So let's jump into 2D for that one. Now before we get into the cabinets are their own tool in the toolbox. So if you do install the trial for those and you want to get to use those, you'll need to either go into your work environment and add them by going to Work Environment Toolbox. Sorry, this is something that happens on my computer every once in a while. Toolbox. And in the panel on the left here, the Cadimage ones will be at the bottom, so you can just choose the cabinet and add it to any group there. Or you can simply apply the Cadimage Profile 20, which you can install using our Cadimage installer while you're installing the trials, and that will automatically put them into the design part of your toolbox. So you can see here I've got it there already, the cabinet tool. And so similarly to the doors and windows tools, the main advantage of the cabinet tool is basically just that it doesn't make any decisions for you. Where's my object tool? Oh, there we go. if I could spell kitchen right, it would show me the various bits of kitchen cabinetry. But again, the problem, well, not the problem as such, but one of the things that it does is that as soon as you choose one type of cabinet, you're stuck with that type of cabinet. If you suddenly want to change that to a exterior corner cabinet or a double door cabinet or something, you have to go choose another object. So one of the things that the Cabinets tool does is it just removes you having to do that sort of thing by making that you just choose the Cabinet tool. We do actually have 4 different objects in here, but they're for grossly different things, so you don't need to worry about changing things as you go. So we've got the Cadimage cabinet, which is the main thing you'll be using, but there's also the cabinet doors and drawers, which is just a door or drawers by themselves, not including the actual body or carcass of the cabinet. There's also an end panel one, which again is just a floating end panel which has no cabinet to it, which you can use to stick on various things, and a cabinet pelmet, which is similar to that in that it's just a pelmet with no actual cabinet to it. But today we're just going to look at the Cadimage cabinet object itself. So by default it's just a rectangular cabinet. You can see there in 3D and then 2D. And by default we're looking at the base unit settings here. So you can see it's a rectangular cabinet and we've got various settings for the dimensions there. If I click on that, you can see we can model up just the front of a cabinet if you already have backing or you're only wanting to show a front for some reason. You can do that there. And then we've got rectangular interior corner or exterior corner settings. So I'm going to stick with rectangular for now, but I'll put a texture on it so you can actually see the thing. There we go. And I'll leave the sizes as default just for now. There's a lot of settings in here. Again, I won't go through all of them because you can probably get a general idea for how it works, but we've got some settings for the walls here, so where you want them to stand, what width you want them to be, whether you want them to merge with cabinets nearby or just be standalone, and we've got our same old attribute settings that are always over to the right there. Then we've got settings for the shelves, base and plinth there, and face frame. You can choose if you want it to be mounted directly, flushly directly, or on the surface, or onto the face frame. Got some settings for the countertop there, so we can set that to be an actual color so you can see it while we're here. And this includes the settings for the upstands as well, and nosing. And you can choose where you want the upstand to be applied. So I'm just going to put one on the back for now so you can see that there, but it'll also let you apply it all the way around if you like. So depending on which part of the cabinet you're working on, you can modify that as you go. Then we've got the settings for the modules here, so you can choose what you want to actually be in your cabinet. So it's set to just one giant drawer at the moment for the upper module, and one door for the lower module, but as you can see the module height of the upper module is 0, which effectively turns off that module. But if I were to turn that on, let's make it... Nope, that's ridiculous, obviously. Why did I do that? Even that's still pretty big. But so we've got 300 high drawer module there, and then a rest of the height leftover module for the doors there. But obviously you can choose it to be different types of doors there, or you can make it none as well if you just want it to be an opening so you can see through to the bottom there. Let's make it 2 drawers so that it looks a little less silly there. And then we've got settings for the doors and drawers. So let's give them a texture. So, no, let's just give them a color actually, so that you can actually see them there. So the door is using a flat panel, and we can change that to any of these ones which are very similar to the panel options that we had in the doors and windows tools. So let's put a bevel on that. Drawer fronts are set to match the door leaves at the moment, which you can see they have done, and it looks a bit silly, so let's just change those to be flat. You can also set what you want the glass to look like as well if you have glass included in your panel like there, but we don't, so we're going to leave that. And then you've got some more detailed settings for the door panel settings. So you've got offsets all the way around there. Same for the drawer fronts. Dimensions for the drawers there, so they're set to equal heights at the moment, but you can make them have different heights if you want to. Any that are set to 0 will be equal, and any that are given a value will be exactly that value. And then there's a bunch of settings for the dimensions of the tray there. Tamper door settings if you're using those. Handle settings, these are all set to D pulls at the moment, but we could change those to finger pulls instead, or any of these various other ones here, and each of these settings gives you a bunch of other settings that you can change there. Then we've got plan view symbol settings, and then the attributes, same as we've had everywhere else. So let's just make that a bit wider. Place it down, and looks like some of my default pens in this project are a bit horrible, but you get the idea. And because I made the width extra, it's added in the second side to that. So if I jump in there now, you can see the module B width, which we can set there. So at the moment they're just mirroring what's on the left, but you can set that up differently as well. So I'll just set that to none. And you can see in 3D it's done exactly what I told it to. So we've got our separation with no fronts or drawers or anything on it there, and our door and our drawers on this one here. And once I select it, you can see the line work of the actual elements underneath there. So if you cut a section through that, you'll see all of those bits. All right, time has run away from me, unfortunately. So that's all I have time to look at really today. I see there are a couple of questions there, so I will have a look at those and I'll send those on to either the support team or the sales or whoever is appropriate to answer those after this. And we'll be sending out the recording later, so thanks everyone for attending. Remember, you can just go to our website, www.cadimage.com, to get hold of a trial version or to buy the tools there. And if you do have any questions after this session, you can email them through to our support desk, which is nz.support@centralinnovation.com. All right, thanks very much for attending.